Good morning and welcome to Games and Nature. Today's report will address the problems surrounding deforestation in the Cerrado, a tropical savanna that covers 22% of Brazil's surface. Half of it has already been destroyed by cattle and agricultural interests. The Mighty Earth has identified the sole traders, Bunge and Cargill, as the two companies primarily responsible for this. This is a typical example of the hardened tragedy of the commons, whereby few selfish individuals exploit a finite, unregulated common pool resource. Depletion of the Cerrado occurs despite the fact that it will ultimately destroy the resource base. I will now turn it over to today's guest, policy consultants, advising the Brazilian government in relation with regulations that can cartel the problem of deforestation. Nastia, would you like to tell us a bit more about what you do?
Thank you, Brianna, for inviting us to talk about this burning issue. Our team has used the well known game theory concept of a prisoner's dilemma game, or PD, to model this tragedy of the commons, which you so well explained. This is done to better understand the available options to regulators as well as their effects on the conservation of the Cerrado. In the PD game, two players have two available strategies each to cooperate or to defect. The dilemma lies in that both players will be better off through mutual cooperation, but since that cannot be guaranteed, defection is the best response strategy for each, which is known as a Nash equilibrium. This reflects the tragedy of the commons as it demonstrates that humans choose to defect when the conservation of a resource is not in their own best interest, resulting in its depletion. The PD involves certain assumptions. Firstly, it is a non cooperative game, as players can't negotiate strategies in advance. Additionally, the players are assumed to be rational agents who only interact once and who only have two possible strategies to choose from. So, modeling the Serato case with the PD game, the options available to the two firms, Bungie and Cargill, or B&C, are either to cooperate by discontinuing suppliers engaging in deforestation or to defect by continuing to cause deforestation in the area. To avoid oversimplification, we will also consider the heterogeneity of the two firms, which arises from different cost structures. It is cheaper for B to cooperate compared to C, as C is more closely associated with deforestation, and thus cooperation would entail greater losses for them. The payoff matrix for the companies can be seen on the slide. The units are dollar millions. Their different cost structures are represented by the difference of 5 units in their corresponding payoffs for cooperation. For mutual cooperation, B receive 90, while C receive 85 due to higher cooperation costs. If both firms choose to defect, payoffs are 20 units for each. In the cases of unreciprocated cooperation, if only B cooperates, they receive 10 while C receive 100. In the reverse case, B receive 100 and C only 5 units, reflecting different cost structures. Hence, the dominant strategy for both firms is to defect, and the Nash equilibrium, highlighted in yellow, will be mutual defection with payoffs 2020. As explained earlier, this inescapably causes the depletion of the Cerrado as a common pool resource. Now, we will remodel the game incorporating the concept of cheater punishment as a preventive measure from the Brazilian government. A tax of 14 units will be imposed by the authorities to either firm that chooses to defect, aimed at encouraging cooperation. Let's examine the effect of this tax on the firm's payoffs. Payoffs for defection will be reduced by 14 units compared to initial values. As a result, B's most beneficial and hence dominant strategy has now changed to cooperation. On the other hand, defection remains C's dominant strategy, since the higher cost of cooperation for the company still rendered defecting more beneficial despite the imposed tax. Thus, the new Nash equilibrium, as highlighted, is unreciprocated cooperation from the part of B. So we understand that although the punishment of non-cooperators with a tax of 14 units has increased cooperation and has actually led to a slower depletion rate, it has still failed to ensure the conservation of the Cerrado. We can also see that the different cost structures of the two firms affect the outcomes of such regulations, rendering them ineffective in some instances. We will now remodel the situation once again with a higher tax of 20 units instead of 14. Let's examine whether the higher tax will be more efficient in preventing resource depletion. As we can see on the payoff matrix, the higher tax has reduced the benefits of defecting sufficiently so that both companies now find it in their best interest to cooperate. The new Nash equilibrium will be mutual cooperation, which coincides with a socially optimal conservation of the Cerrado, regardless of the different cost structures. So, to conclude our overall results, the use of taxation can be used to mitigate the problem of resource depletion through limiting the incentive to defect by increasing its cost. Back to you, Brianna.
Thanks, Nastia. That was super interesting. Nonetheless, I know that costly punishment has some limitation. Let's hear from consultants Sarah and Abid.
Hi, Brianna. Yes. So while today punishment is widely used for environmental sustainability and to bring collaboration, we argue can it lead to true pro-social behavior? In environmental sustainability, we argue that collaboration alone is not enough in the long term, as it can contain some inherently selfish elements like personal interests. However, in sustainability, we need a selfless focus on a common goal for the public good and a true pro-social perspective. Thus, punishment in this sense may be ineffective and limiting. Moreover, Howard et al. 2007 argue that collaboration is highest when the joint activity is voluntary and not enforced. Thus, the specific case that we presented may be at particularly high risk of defection because it has two levels of enforced joint activity. We have taxation, which is a constraint, and we also have climate preservation, which is by nature an activity that people cannot not take part in. Additionally, quoting Sigmund et al. 2001, even in the absence of rationality assumptions, both punishment and reward will fail to bring about pro-social behavior. However, the authors argue that adding the sphere of reputation may mitigate this. However, we say, isn't doing something good because it brings good reputation back an inherently selfish behavior as well, and thus limited in bringing the pro-social behavior that we need for sustainability? Over to you, Abed.
Thank you, Sarah. While taxation has proved to be an effective way of solving cheater punishment problems in some cases, it's less clear how effective it would be more broadly. While many natural resources markets do tend towards oligopoly, it is very rare that there will only be two players in a market, and so this model is quite limited. Moreover, in reality, consumption does not always follow a binary choice of consume more or consume less. Rather, it's often a choice from a continuous spectrum of different levels. The one-shot nature of the model is not really realistic either. In reality, firms interact with each other before and after each iteration of such a game. They can cooperate, collude, and engage in other anti-competitive behavior, and even merge, integrate, or form other types of contractual relations. Tax evasion has also proven to be an unavoidable issue, as there exists no supranational body to oversee such a tax as there is in the game. Moreover, there is growing evidence that common-side problems can have solutions other than taxation or cheater punishment. For example, in the specific case of sustainability, cap-and-trade systems have proven to be a popular and effective method, in which firms have tradable rights to consume a certain amount, and then they can buy and sell such permits as they need, with no need for any cheater punishment. Back to you, Brianna.
Thank you all for participating in today's episode of Games in Nature, where we addressed the problems surrounding the deforestation in the Cerrado region in Brazil. We found that the use of taxation, hence punishment, can be used to mitigate the problem of resource depletion through limiting the incentive to defect by increasing the cost. The results from our heterogeneous model can be further validated due to its generalizability and applicability to the preservation of resources in real-world examples. For instance, in the Netherlands, it is notoriously known for having effective waste management through the use of fines when recycling and waste disposables are not followed routinely. This has been proven to be effective in punishing non-cooperators to collaborate, as the Netherlands is one of the greenest countries today. However, as Sarah and Abid highlighted, there are certain limitations in adopting the prisoner dilemma game to model these situations.